This video is brought to you by Raycon. Do you think Wario ended up the way he did because his father didn't love him? Well, if you don't want your dad giving you the Wario treatment, might I recommend giving him Raycon's essential open earbuds for Father's Day. I think he'll really like them, whether he's going for walks pretending to do work on the yard or just spreading eagle outside the house. These babies are simple to use, and with the open ear design, they can listen to music or podcasts while still hearing everything around them so that they don't check out and sleep on the lawn again. They're a perfect gift that's practical and something they can use daily, which is good because right now they're 15% off. The essential open earbuds sit just outside your ear canal, and the hook design ensures they don't fall off your ears. They weigh next to nothing and last 8 hours of playtime with the rechargeable carrying case, giving you 36 hours of total battery life on a single charge. Folks that have been following my channel know that I've been talking about Raycons for years because I genuinely believe they're a great product that have gotten me through countless yoga sessions and arduous house cleaning. Over 3 million customers don't lie. Raycon's got your back because of sound quality that's just as good as the supremely more expensive brands, and they're half the price to boot. So don't wait long, upgrade your dad's everyday routine. Go to buyraycon.com/somecallmejohnny open to get 15% off. That's buyraycon.com/somecallmejohnny open to get 15% off. You can also scan the QR code on the screen there so you can start saving money on your very phone. Much love to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and thank you as always for helping support this channel. Now let's continue on with the show. Alright then, let the 15th anniversary celebration continue, and next up is the Wario Land series. But today, I'm only focusing on the original lineup of Wario Land games released on the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance. And it's probably no surprise at this point, but I am playing most of these games for the first time for this video. Wario was someone I've always been familiar with thanks to spin-off games like Mario Party, Mario Kart, and Super Smash Bros. But call it being narrow-minded, I always gave the Wario Land series the cold shoulder as a kid simply because Wario wasn't Mario. And you know what? I think Hiroshi Kiyotake, the original designer of Wario and the rest of Nintendo R&D 1, would be happy to hear that because that was the entire basis of Wario's creation. So apparently Nintendo R&D 1 didn't like that they were placed in charge of the Mario Land games on the Game Boy because, simply put, Mario wasn't their creation, it was someone else's. Therefore, Wario being the antithesis to Mario doesn't just stop at him being fat, greedy, and a bit of a slob. You can also look at it as Nintendo R&D 1 basically telling the folks over at Nintendo EAD, the main development team at Nintendo at the time, to suck a big fat one, we're making our own Mario so that we can do whatever the hell we want with him later on. Sometimes nothing fuels the creative mind better than the power of spite. And so after the release of Super Mario Land 2 and establishing Wario as a new entity for the franchise, Nintendo R&D 1 followed up by giving Wario his very own game, simply titled Wario Land Super Mario Land 3. This is the only Wario game to have the Super Mario Land moniker. It's completely absent starting with the other games. So if I had to guess, this was probably a mandate from the higher ups, make sure the kids know this is still related to Mario in some fashion. And the devs agreed to it, but they put such a de-emphasis on it. I mean, Wario Land just towers over the Super Mario Land 3 subtitle. So after Wario got his head stomped at the end of Mario Land 2 and lost the deed to the castle that wasn't his, Wario decides, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna make my own castle. And it just so happens that a giant golden statue of Princess Peach was recently stolen by the brown sugar pirates of Kitchen Island. Wario figures if he can steal the statue from the pirates, he can sell it back to Mario for an insane price and fund his new home. And thus Wario heads to Kitchen Island to not only get the statue back for his selfish schemes, but to also pilfer any other treasures the pirates are holding on to as well. Wario's eBay page is gonna be fucking stacked. As Wario, you can just jump and bonk things with your fat ass like you'd expect, but you'll soon find out this isn't enough to take out some of the larger guys. Some of them require you to pick them up and toss them like rag dolls, beat a motherfucker with another motherfucker, as they say. Unfortunately, that can be a little unruly at times. Wario easily drops shit under a low ceiling, and that makes sense, I guess. But shit, sometimes just rubbing against the walls enough to make him drop whatever he's holding. And jumping ahead here, this is a problem I'm gonna have with every game I'm looking at today, and I don't get it. Why does rubbing against a wall cause Wario to drop shit? Is Wario easily stimulated? Actually, don't answer that. But someone with the sheer power and girth as Wario can also take it to enemies with a good old shoulder tackle. Thrash enemies big and small, break through walls to find hidden routes or secrets. Wario's a tough son of a bitch and he's damn proud of it. Hell, some enemies can't even directly harm Wario through mere contact. You can get all up in their face with no problem and Wario would just no-sell it. The only exception are spiky enemies or enemies with weapons like dudes with spears or these duck guys that throw boomerangs. I like the sound they make. But Wario can even the odds with weapons of his own. So strangely, Wario loses his regular hat before the beginning of the game. He ends up replacing it with this, I think it's a safari hat, or it could be a hard hat, I'm not sure, and honestly I never got this. Was this R&D1 trying to distinguish Wario from his portly counterpart even more? I don't mind the wardrobe change, like it's a separate series, but I absolutely love Wario's fit in the WarioWare games, but I don't think this hat particularly fits Wario. But wearing different hats is what gives Wario the added sauce. With the Viking helmet, Wario can become Bull Wario, giving him a stronger shoulder tackle and a ground pound which stuns nearby enemies and breaks certain floors. It's basic, but gets the job done. The Dragon pickup creates Dragon Wario, letting him spew fire from his hat. Great for roasting enemies and breaking objects. It's also great when you're swimming in water because you actually have a means of defending yourself now. My only problem is that it replaces the shoulder tackle, and I like the shoulder tackle, and the range is pretty short. After a while, I stopped caring about this one unless it was needed for a secret treasure. The last power-up though is undoubtedly the best, and that's Jet Wario. Wario's faster on his feet, he jumps higher, and he can do an air dash which you can spam to your heart's content. It's Bunny Mario on steroids, and in a game where the platforming can get a little intense, this is a great means of giving you the edge, or finding out-of-reach secrets like treasure or coin caches. And in Wario Land, that's the name of the game: treasure, coins, moolah. Money is everything in Wario Land, and you better make damn sure you're collecting as much as you can. You want to activate a checkpoint mid-level? That requires coins. Want to play the mini-games at the end of every stage to get more lives and such? That requires coins. Some levels even require you to pay a fee to open the exit. Yeah, you just can't leave, you gotta pay the toll. And while on paper this sounds obnoxious, especially considering that not every level will require a toll to leave, so where's the consistency here? Wario Land takes every opportunity to shower you with coins, be it from enemies, blocks, or hidden alcoves. You can even convert those coins into a heavy-ass coin Wario can toss like a projectile to defeat some enemies. I just wish I knew about this sooner, because with some guys, having a long-range option certainly would have been the better play, like with some boss fights. Most of these guys aren't too much of a problem, and as someone who played Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, I couldn't help but notice these guys make the same noise as Metroids did whenever they got hurt. God damn, these Metroids have every disease. The only one that gave me some degree of trouble outside of the final boss, more on that later, was the giant bird Bobo. It should be said, you can have Wario jump higher when you hold up on the D-pad when pressing jump, but my dumbass didn't know that at first, and dear God, trying to jump on a little burst to reach the top of the big bird's head was not pleasant. The rest of the game though was pretty bog standard. Wario Land drops the open-ended level progression of Mario Land 2 and goes back to a more linear A to B format, taking him through Rice Beach, the treacherous Mount Teapot, the frozen Sherbert Land. Oh, so Sherbert Land came from Wario Land. I thought that was something exclusive to Mario Kart. Anyway, then you have the red hot stove canyon, and thank Christ Wario hasn't developed his gas problem yet. The SST Cup, which you would think would be the host of the final level, seeing as it's the main vessel of the Brown Sugar Pirates, but there's two other worlds after this. Parsley Wood was pretty much the game's take on the Forest Evolution from Mario World, and finally Syrup Castle, the final stronghold of the Brown Sugar Pirates. Here the main villain finally reveals themselves: Captain Syrup. Shiver me timbers, it's a girl, and this girl wants you dead with the power of this magical genie she picked up somewhere, I don't fucking know. So this boss, I don't like this boss. It's nothing complicated, you just gotta jump on the magical clouds the lamp generates so that you can reach the genie's head and give him a good bop. But in order to make the lamp produce the cloud, you gotta toss the thing and pray it lands right side up, and that's the biggest problem because it's completely random on when the lamp decides to do that. It's RNG, and at its worst, you can go several throws before the lamp decides to finally play ball, and the genie, by the way, is constantly throwing shit at you. Again, nothing complicated, but fuck, it's annoying. The genie will go down in time, and with Captain Syrup out of commission, the Princess Peach statue is free for the taking for a few seconds until Mario suddenly shows up, takes the statue back, leaving Wario with a big fat load of... But it's not all bad, as Wario then gets the idea to use the genie's lamp to summon the genie for himself, who agrees to give Wario a new home depending on the number of coins Wario collected throughout the game. You gotta pay for this wish? This is some bullshit. Originally, I had enough to make the Wario tree trunk. It's quaint, but it can work until the termites come and fuck everything up. But the more treasures and coins you collect, the better the house will be at the ending, ranging from a log cabin, a pagoda, and a proper castle. But if you manage to collect every treasure and max out the coin count, the genie bestows Wario his own goddamn planet. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Wait a fucking minute. Wario standing on top of it. I know this is probably just the game saying that Wario is on top of the world, but if you look at this literally, this planet's tiny as shit. Where can Wario sleep? Where can he shit? Oh, this is one of those asshole genies, huh? Collecting coins and the hidden treasures of each world is how you're getting the most out of this game, I think, because besides that, like I said, the game is a pretty standard platformer. Bonking enemies and using power-ups is cool enough, but Wario's here for treasure, and that requires sifting through all these places with a fine-tooth comb for both the key needed to open the treasure box and then find the treasure box itself. Some treasures can be in pretty devious locations, and if you manage to die and get a game over, you end up losing one of your treasures and gotta go back to its respective level to recollect it. Maxing out the coin count for the best ending is its own challenge too, because that son of a bitch is a 5-digit number in a game where you collect coins and levels by the single digits. Thankfully, the treasures you collect do contribute to the total coin count, so in reality, you don't need to manually collect 99,999 coins, but you still need a shit ton of them. If you want to save yourself some time, there is a debug code you can enter so that you can max out your coin count at the end of every level, making the coin farm way less arduous. And that's what I ended up doing because I feel I got more than enough of my Wario Land experience by unlocking secret levels and collecting all the hidden treasure. Just make sure you got some time to kill when it's time to count up all the riches during the ending, because if you did everything, you gotta watch the coin count manually count down from 99,999, and Jesus Christ, it is so long. Holy shit, finally. It's still just Mario enough to get into as a basic 2D platformer, but I appreciate what it does differently to set Wario apart from his contemporary. I like the treasure hunting in this. It feels good to find the hidden goodies and collecting as many coins as I can. The best part of every boss battle is the coin barrage afterwards, where Wario scrambles to collect every coin like he's in serious debt with the Mafia. Assuming you're going for the best ending and not using the debug code, the game can get pretty grindy with coin farming. I humored it for a bit, but then I got bored, and that's when my audience who was watching me record these games suggested that I just use the code to get a move on. I love it when my audience knows I have better shit to do. Time is precious. Graphically, the game is expressive and certainly more deranged than your usual Mario affair, but overall I think it's pretty neat and detailed, and the soundtrack, it's good and it's plenty catchy, but I gotta say, the instrumentation makes a lot of tracks sound like they're coming right out of Wario's asshole. Still, Wario Land 1 was a solid time. We're off to a good start. And clearly it was a hit with the masses because 4 years later, we got Wario Land 2 for the original Game Boy. And then...
John, you gotta look at the Virtual Boy.
God damn it, fine. Okay, so between Wario Land 1 and 2, there was another Wario Land game developed by Nintendo R&D 1, Virtual Boy Wario Land. And yeah, it was for the Virtual Boy. I don't like the Virtual Boy. I tried the genuine thing during a Too Many Games over a decade ago, and I couldn't stomach more than 10 minutes of it because it hurt my eyes. I can't wear the thing with glasses on, otherwise I can't sink my head fully into the visor, and without glasses, I tend to get headaches easily. It's just not something I'm physically comfortable with, but the fact of the matter is, there was a Wario Land game released for it, and I feel I need to give it its proper dues. It was also one of the last Nintendo games produced by Gunpei Yokoi, before his unfortunate passing in 1997. And seeing as this man was responsible for helping create one of my favorite franchises of all time, I feel I should give the last peripheral he made for Nintendo an honest-to-God shot. That said, this is the newly released Nintendo Switch variant. Yeah, that $100 piece of plastic. But if it means anything, it simulates the 3D effect of the original Virtual Boy pretty accurately. You place your Nintendo Switch or Switch 2 into the slot, and thanks to the special lens in the visor, you can play Virtual Boy games like you're using the genuine product. Which is to say, this is an accurate recreation of the original Virtual Boy experience, meaning this shit still hurts my eyes after a few minutes, and it's a son of a bitch to record. One day after flying around in his seaplane, the Bulldog, and taking a nap near the river basin of the Awazon? That's what it's called. I think that's what it's called. Wario notices some dudes carrying some treasure to the nearby treasure vault in this cavern system. Deciding he wants the treasure for himself, Wario does his Wario thing, but the ground suddenly collapses under him, sending him deep into the caves below. Fueled by his anger and greed, Wario swears to get out of the caves and get the treasure from that vault if it's the last thing he does. And I really mean fueled by anger because my dude looks fucking psychotic in the commercial for this game, which is hilarious looking back at it because all the gameplay footage they show looks like shit. They likely couldn't record proper Virtual Boy footage because of the nature of the device. And on top of Wario quoting the fucking Joker from Batman '89, the music is also just shamelessly mimicking the style of Danny Elfman to complement it. Though it sounds more Beetlejuice than anything.
It's Wario Land, a 3D game for a 3D world.
Wait till they get a load of me!
This town needs an enema.
Virtual Boy Wario Land brings back all the basic gameplay elements of the first Wario Land. Wario can do just about everything from the original, but thanks to the extra buttons on the Virtual Boy, Wario now has a dedicated run button, making him snappier to move altogether. If there's one thing I'm going to immediately highlight now, it's Wario's controls. They are so buttery smooth in this game. Not that the first game had bad controls, mind you, but Wario did feel a little sluggish at times if he didn't have the jet power-up. His top speed without it was nothing more than a power walk. But here, by default, Wario is quicker on his feet, and the jump physics feel more natural. Sometimes I found myself getting caught up on how great Wario handles in this, that I tended to be more reckless with tighter jumps because it was a blast seeing how fast I can get through things. The game otherwise is basically a continuation of Wario Land 1. And now you don't gotta pay coins to exit the stage, you just need to find the key hidden somewhere in the level and bring it to the exit. And most of the time that's a simple process, it's the bare minimum. The real meat of the game, as before, is locating all the treasures, and this time you have both the foreground and background to explore. You jump on one of these arrow thingies and Wario will leap to the opposite layer. The footage here really doesn't do it justice, but viewing the game through the Virtual Boy proper does visually give every level a sense of depth that makes the environment feel deeper than it actually is, and some obstacles really benefit from the 3D effect too, giving them an extra sense of menace. One of my favorite effects is in the treasure room. The pedestal the treasure boxes stand on looks like a genuine 3D model despite it being just a couple of 2D layers. But that's pretty much where the Virtual Boy gimmick starts and ends, layering. And outside of appreciating the technical side of it, it doesn't add that much to the gameplay. It's nothing amazing, but it also isn't intrusive, until the final level, which is such a visual clusterfuck of different shit that it was hard to get a grasp of where I was at times. Otherwise, the layering gimmick feels like a natural addition to the Wario Land formula that you can appreciate here, but wouldn't miss if it were taken away. As a game, I gotta say, despite being on the Virtual Boy and despite the game only having a red and black color scheme, I really like this one. It's Wario Land 1 with, I feel, richer level design, better controls, and better power-ups. The names are a little different except for Bull Wario, that's still the same. But the three different hats basically function how they did before, but in this game the Dragon and Eagle hats can actually combine to form King Dragon Wario, and this power-up is fucking awesome. You got the added strength of Bull Wario, you can shoot fireballs which tear apart enemies and obstacles, and you can dash in the air with good timing. This shit is killer and so much fun to zoom around with, and the game gives you so many opportunities to try it out. Adding to this, say there's a power-up you find but don't need at the moment. One, you can't accidentally overwrite your power-up with another one if you're already benefiting from it. So, for example, you don't have to worry about downgrading from King Dragon Wario to regular as Bull Wario if you try to collect its power-up. Power-ups also won't despawn until you pick them up, even if you leave the room. And let me tell you, when you're hunting for those treasures, this is a fucking godsend if a secret path requires a specific power-up and you lost it along the way. This game is so pleasant, and it isn't very long either. I clocked in a little under 3 hours. That isn't as long as Wario Land 1, granted, and I didn't mind the length of that game either, for the record. But fuck man, sometimes I just want a game to be a couple of hours long, you get me? Virtual Boy Wario Land is a game that respects my time. If I had any low points, it'd be with the mini-games between every level and the boss fights. If you want a better ending without having to worry about the treasures, you're gonna need a shitload of coins, and the best way to get them is playing this game where you have to guess which bag has the money in it. You get it right, you multiply your coin count by a fuck ton, but you get it wrong, and your coin count gets cut in half. It's RNG pure and simple, and unless you like abusing save states until you get it right, I hope you're willing to risk what you got. The handful of boss fights aren't the best either. Strangely, I found the first boss to be the toughest because I, for the life of me, had a hard-ass time bouncing on this guy's head with that damn ball and chain swinging around his head in that weird fashion. The other bosses I thought were okay, if a little uneventful, and the final boss, the demon head, is the classic giant head with two hands bullshit, but still nothing too bad. The rest of the game more than makes up for it. It's great to control, it's rewarding, and not ball-bustingly difficult, and with the game being on stronger hardware, Wario's sprite work is wonderful. I love his confident smile when you score big, and I love how pathetic he looks when you get fucked in the minigame. The music is good here too, and not as farty as the first game, but the Virtual Boy instrumentations does make it sound over-modulated at times, so I'd practice caution if you're playing this with headphones on. If you're willing to put up with the Virtual Boy being what it is, Virtual Boy Wario Land is a great fucking time. But let's be real, I get the feeling most people these days are just gonna emulate the game, and I wouldn't blame them, because getting an actual Virtual Boy from the 90s ain't cheap, and getting the Virtual Boy peripheral for the Nintendo Switch not only requires this $100 piece of plastic, but it also requires a Nintendo Switch with an active NSO subscription. So if you want to play this game legally, your ass better get to saving those coins and fast, because God knows how much Nintendo Switches and Nintendo Switch 2s are going to cost in the future in this fucking economy. But okay, alright, back to the OG Game Boy is what I would be saying if I were looking at the original release of Wario Land 2. But for this video, I'm playing the Game Boy Color re-release that came out just a year later. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's Wario Land 2 with added color thanks to the hardware's extended color palette. While Wario is taking a snooze in his snazzy new castle, okay, so Planet Wario is non-canon, thank God, Captain Syrup and the Brown Sugar Pirates make their return to infiltrate Wario's home and not only steal all his shit, but they also leave his tap water running. Wait a minute, they robbed Wario and left the water running? Are they pirates or the fucking wet bandits from Home Alone? Wario wakes up soon after and isn't too happy about his current situation, so with nothing but the clothes on his back, Wario heads out to deal with the Brown Sugar Pirates once again and tries to get all his stuff back. Okay, so that's normally what happens, but Wario Land 2 is a game with multiple endings, and I shit you not, I accidentally unlocked an alternate pathway before the game even began on my first time, because, so, you're supposed to move Wario when the first level starts to get him out of bed and shut off the alarm clock. However, because I thought I was being funny, I decided to wait it out while I was chatting with my audience in the Discord, and little did I know, ignoring the alarm clock unlocks a hidden route with a different ending where Wario sleeps through Captain Syrup's tirade, gets thrown out of his own house, and the rest of the game is Wario invading his own castle to kick Captain Syrup and her goons the fuck out. And I really mean it, Wario sends them fucking flying to the moon when he finishes this path. Genuinely, I thought this was a great first impression, but I wasn't ready for what I was about to see next. When you reach an ending, the game will show you what levels you explored, what treasures you nabbed, and more importantly, what levels you didn't explore yet. And holy shit, this game looked positively gargantuan. There's about 51 levels in Wario Land 2, and if you're going for full completion, you gotta play them all and collect all the hidden treasures, but just to put this out there, I didn't bother this time. And let's get into why. Wario Land 2 is by far the most linear game in the series. In this title, once you finish a level, you can't go back to it in case you missed something. You're locked to whatever path you're in until you reach an ending. At that point, you're free to start over and revisit those stages when you get to them to grab those treasures you probably missed, or look for alternate pathways that'll take you to new levels and a new ending. Wario Land 2 is a game you're meant to play multiple times to get everything. You know, I've played my share of games that required more than one playthrough to fully complete it, like Star Fox and Shadow of the Hedgehog. It's clear that replayability is the modus operandi of Wario Land 2, but I gotta be real, after my second run, I just kind of stopped caring. I want to preface right now that I didn't enjoy this game as much as the first two games, but that doesn't mean I hated it, I just didn't like it as much. And it mainly centers on how they altered the core gameplay. Wario Land 2 fundamentally changes things up a bit. The spirit remains the same. Wario's a greedy little shitmobile and coins are his fuel. Coins are more important than ever because getting all the treasures in this game requires playing mini games you find in levels which cost coins to play. And if you want an easier time with said mini games, you gotta pay even more money. I think looking back, this was my least favorite thing about this game. The treasures should have been stuff you found like in the first two games and not tied to mini games you can very possibly lose. Now, to be fair, for the treasure games, there's nothing stopping you from re-entering the game room should you fuck up. As long as you have the coins to spend, you can try these as many times as you want. The same can't be said for the minigame that follows after every level completion. You gotta guess the number hidden behind the panels, and the more coins you have, the more panels you can eventually reveal. You get it right, you get a piece of this big ass map that'll eventually lead you to the true final area of the game. You get it wrong, you get jack shit, and on your first playthrough you can't go back to try again because the game doesn't let you backtrack to previously completed stages, you gotta wait for a new playthrough. If anything, to make this a little more comfortable, go for the alternate ending like I did on your first run, it doesn't take terribly long, and then start your playthrough proper with the second run, because starting with your second playthrough and beyond, you can reselect any stage you previously played. However, screwing up the number game does mean you gotta replay the entire stage for another shot, which I think is just dumb. I understand it's 2026, we live in a day and age where save states mitigate these issues. Make a save before playing the game, you reload it if you fuck up, but I still feel the need to ask, was this really necessary? I guess so, otherwise all the coins would serve no purpose, and it make exploring levels feel emptier. I just wonder if the coins were better suited to something else, you know? I think the way treasures were handled in the first two games was perfectly fine. Finding them was its own reward. Why throw RNG into that other than to make you replay the game if you fuck up? Wario retains most of the same abilities as before. He can still shoulder tackle, ground pound, and pick up enemies to throw them at other enemies or through certain blocks to clear a new path. In this game, Wario can even slide on certain slopes to roll into a ball and crash through a bunch of blocks barricading the way. However, all of Wario's power-ups are gone. No Bull Wario, no Dragon Wario, no better Dragon Wario, nothing. He finally gets a game where he gets to wear his old hat and he fucking loses everything else. What the shit? His control also feels on the heavier side, and I'm talking heavier than he was in Wario Land 1. He barely gets any height if you just tap the jump button, and your shoulder tackle is the only way you're getting any ground speed because he can't dash in this game like he could do in the Virtual Boy game. On the flip side, Wario is completely immortal in this game. This asshole can't die at all, no matter what's thrown at him, no matter how dangerous, and you won't find any bottomless pits anywhere either. So you might be thinking, if you can't die, what exactly is the danger here? Well, danger wouldn't be the way to put it. I think a better question to ask is, what are the consequences of getting hurt? Well, for one thing, getting hurt causes Wario to lose coins, and if you're trying to play those minigames for some treasure, obviously you don't want this happening. Secondly, while you can't die, that doesn't mean Wario won't physically react to damage. His knockback in this game is fucking absurd. And in something like the city levels that's one ginormous climb up to the top, this can get insufferable in no time. A consistent obstacle in Wario Land 2 is trying not to get hit at all, or else you gotta pick yourself up and start all over again. And you know, sometimes this ain't a big deal. It doesn't take long to start the puzzle or obstacle course again, get back out there. Other times, like the bits where you're flying with this owl dude, God, I want it to end already. The control is so loose. But here's the kicker. Sometimes you want to get hit by specific enemies because depending on the type, they can temporarily transform Wario into a different state that's needed to get through the stage or solve puzzles. Fire enemies can set Wario ablaze, causing him to dash uncontrollably until he fizzles out. Some enemies can flatten Wario like a pancake, where he can then use this new form to glide through the air and fit through narrow gaps. On the opposite end, some enemies can feed Wario food and bloat his ass up, making him weigh a metric ton and slow as fuck. He's fat! But he can also break through certain floors with the added weight. Bees and other spiky enemies can give Wario a severe allergic reaction, causing him to float into the air until he hits the ceiling. And god damn, Wario may not be able to die, but if his allergies are that bad, I bet he wishes for death. Wario Land 2 is significantly more puzzle-oriented, where platforming isn't so much the entire focus, but using these different forms to figure out how to proceed or find hidden secrets. It's a different flavor of Wario Land, one that sets it apart from the first two games, which were more straightforward. And I didn't mind this, especially after I decided to not 100% the game. I was content with just finishing this one. I felt that allowed me to digest the levels themselves and not be so caught up in wondering where hidden collectibles were. And with that said, Wario has a pet chicken with massive tits. I love me some chicken breast, but what did Nintendo mean by this? The thing I dislike about the change to the gameplay loop is just how time-consuming it feels now. What I mean is that often the biggest punishment for screwing up a puzzle or fumbling an obstacle course or getting hit by an enemy at the wrong time or place is wasted time, because when Wario's transformed and such, you're pretty much in a helpless state until the transformation wears off naturally, or you're forced to reset him with something like a body of water. A few transformations like Zombie Wario or Crazy Wario are the embodiment of this, where they're often fail states that require you to slowly make your way to a reset point and try again. Shit like this adds up over time, and it was beginning to gnaw at my very soul. I get hit by an ice attack, so now Wario's sliding all the way back, resetting my progression. I turned into a spring, and now I'm forced to jump on shit I didn't mean to, and I can't do anything until it runs out. I get hit by a specific attack in a boss battle, and now my transformed state forces me to reset the room and start again from square one. I gotta give it to Wario Land 2. The game beautifully demonstrates why immortality isn't what it's cracked up to be. Honestly, I miss being able to die because it's at least quicker, you know what I mean? When I'm watching Wario in an uncontrollable state for the 5th time in a single stage, it starts to wear me down. I had my fun with this game for sure, but Wario Land 2 was kind of exhausting at points. But not as exhausting as Wario Land 3. I know I'm gonna get chewed out for this one, but this was the worst one for me. At the same time, I don't think it's necessarily the game's fault. So the game begins with Wario on his plane once again, which soon stalls out and forces Wario to make a crash landing. I think this is the last game where Wario has a biplane, so rest in piss. After wandering around for a bit, Wario finds a dark cavern where he discovers a music box that sucks him into a new world. A mysterious voice then promises to help Wario escape and let him keep all the treasure he finds if he can find the 5 magical musical boxes scattered across the land to help restore the mysterious entity's powers. They say the fastest way to Wario's heart is through his greed, so of course Wario agrees to help, but he's definitely got his work cut out for him this time. Every level in the game contains 4 major treasures to collect, each requiring their respective key to collect first, and then you gotta find the box. But here's the thing, you can't nab all the treasures at once. The level ends as soon as you grab one, and some you won't be able to grab until either you have the means to do so, or revisit the stage at a certain time of the day. Wario Land 3 has a day and night system that, I'm gonna be real, felt pretty superfluous. I know it's necessary to open up different pathways in some stages or find specific treasures, but considering you can change the time of the day as easy as exiting and re-entering a stage or shit, later finding an upgrade that removes even doing that as a necessity, the day and night system felt like it wasn't really needed. Though, I suppose it is better than Simon's Quest or the original Shantae. At least you can control this one. So going in the completely opposite direction of the last game, Wario Land 3 goes for a more open-ended Metroidvania style of progression. Wario can not only find treasure to satisfy his appetite, but he can also find upgrades to let him go deeper into levels he couldn't explore fully previously. Additionally, as you collect certain treasures, this can cause something in the overworld to change, transforming certain levels that lead to more pathways to search around it and find even more treasure to collect. Wario Land 3, as far as the world is concerned and its sense of progression, I didn't find bad. I like the cause and effect that you clearly see throughout the game. It genuinely made me curious about how my next visit to a stage was going to be different this time around. Which is important because if you're trying to grab all the things in this game, every level requires to be played 4 times to nab all the treasures. Just saying that out loud sounds exhausting, which is important why the gameplay itself needs to be constantly engaging, especially as a Metroidvania. However, as far as Metroidvanias go, and you guys know how much I love Metroidvanias, Wario Land 3 is a lousy Metroidvania. Let's start with the major MacGuffins of Wario Land 3, the 5 music boxes. To beat the game, you gotta collect all 5. Nothing unusual about that, but Christ, I wish the game was better about spreading these out evenly. The first one is given to you not terribly long after your journey begins, but then it feels like hours before you get to the next one and so on and so forth. And just a heads up, Wario Land 3 is long, like it's a chunky fucking Game Boy Color game. You know, I appreciate the effort in making the adventure so jam-packed, but fuck man, I thought Wario Land 2 was exhausting at times. This game not only wore me out, but it was also frustrating, and a big part of that was the game's continuation of Wario Land 2's immortality gimmick. Nothing can kill Wario in this game until the end, so transformations are once again front and center on how Wario progresses through every area. And this game not only brings back Wario Land 2's forms, but it also has some brand new forms like an uncontrollable ball of webbing, which is basically Fire Wario without the immolation, and Vampire Wario, which I didn't mind. I like this one. You turn into a bat and you can fly anywhere as long as you don't touch water or run into any light. Wario Land 3 continues the last game's penchant for puzzles, using different forms when needed, or making you transform as punishment for getting hit and wasting your fucking time. God, I wish I could just die in this game just to get a move on. Again, it's just the forced downtime that gets up my ass when you're transformed, whether you intended to or not. You fuck up a section that requires a specific form, you can't do anything until the transformation runs out. Nothing exemplifies this more than with boss encounters, because now you can't afford to get hit at all. This game doesn't give you a whole lot of coins to collect, so the devs probably figured, alright, getting hit isn't punishing enough, we're gonna change that. If you get hit at all in boss fights, you gotta restart the fight because of Wario's transformation forcing him outside of the boss arena. This fucking sucks. Every boss is a one-hit kill essentially. Like imagine you're playing Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, but every boss was fucking Moldorm. Ugh. The only exception is Shoot, but it's not as if that makes him any better. This guy fucking sucks too. He was a boss in Wario Land 2 that I didn't mind. I thought the basketball gimmick was fun, if a little weird. But he returns here with a soccer gimmick, and it's such a clusterfuck of bad hit detection and control. You shoot these nuts, you hairy prick. With the 5 music boxes as my focus, whenever I managed to reach a new treasure box and it wasn't the thing I was looking for, either because it was an upgrade or a completely optional treasure that served nothing but to change the ending, it started to irritate me a little. Granted, it's not as if other Metroidvanias I played didn't have clear end goals, you know, kill the major bosses to reach Turian and Mother Brain at the end, collect pieces of Dracula to fight your dad, but this was usually circumvented by the cool upgrades and other expansions to my kit that made character progression fun and engaging and helped keep my mind from exclusively focusing on the main objective. However, this game suffers in this aspect because the upgrades in Wario Land 3 are lame as shit to me. After enough progression, Wario will find the upgrades to bounce off enemies' heads and toss them like rag dolls, shoulder tackle through blocks, break blocks with his head, swim in water, ground pound. Does any of that sound familiar? Yeah, these were things Wario could naturally do in the first 3 games, but for some reason Wario can't at the start of this game. That is a clumsy means of making progression feel more fulfilling. Now, there are some upgrades that are augmentations of Wario's skills to make him hit harder or jump higher, and these are just fine. But why the fuck do I need an upgrade to do something so basic as picking an enemy up? I'm Wario, goddammit, he should be able to do that naturally. I know some of you might be thinking, well, John, you love Metroid. Samus goes through this all the time. You get decked out in a whole bunch of shit, but by next game, you're usually back to square one. The thing is, that's the way games like Metroid have always been. It's part of the core foundation. Shit, even when Castlevania went Metroidvania with Symphony of the Night, it's not as if Alucard couldn't jump in the beginning or couldn't use sub-weapons. It built upon what classic Castlevania had already established. Wario Land 3 doesn't do that. It should have left Wario's default skills alone and just go from there. The upgrade should have been the return of the hats or something unique to this game that essentially served the same purpose. Making most upgrades basic ass techniques he had before just feels weak. The first few hours of this game were fucking miserable for me because for some time I'm playing a neutered Wario and I wasn't having fun. But I am conflicted about this and don't want to immediately blame this entirely on the game. This is simply how Wario Land 3 does things. If you want Wario to be more capable, you gotta work for it. The problem for me is that I'm heading into this with the context of the first 3 games, where Wario didn't have to worry about this kind of thing. I just needed to collect coins, nab treasure when I could, and get through the next platforming challenge. If this were my first Wario Land game, I might have seen things differently. Even so, that wouldn't make the one-hit kill bullshit with bosses any easier to swallow, nor would it make my ambivalence to this golf minigame any less apparent. Wario Land 3 has only one minigame, and it's this golf shit. And I don't know, it's not bad, but fuck, you gotta play a lot of it if you want to open specific routes, and after some time, I just stopped giving a shit. Fortunately, the game does stop putting emphasis on it after around 4 or 5 hours into the adventure. The fact of the matter is, this wasn't my first Wario Land, it's my 4th, and I don't like what the game changes to Wario for the sake of making this journey unique. I understand this formula is considered the main appeal of Wario Land 2 and 3. The first 2 games were still fundamentally tied to their roots as spin-offs to the Super Mario Bros. Series. Wario Land 2 and 3 are when Wario starts becoming something of his own, and this is how some people prefer Wario. It's not so much about power-ups and platforming, but puzzle solving, being unable to die, and seeing Wario get himself into some strange scenarios. God, he is just putting the death grip on that owl's cock. The bottom line for me, though, is that this game didn't do it for me, and I was glad to see it over. I eventually collected the 5 music boxes, restored the powers of the mysterious voice, who turns out to be an evil clown named Rudy. He can actually kill Wario too, the only time in the game he can die. But the fight itself isn't terribly hard. Rudy goes bye-bye, the day is saved, the townspeople are restored, but I am gonzo, I am never playing this one again. But I am happy to have perspective on it. And that just leaves us with the last game for this video, Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance, a launch title for the handheld. And this one I actually have played a little bit of before years ago when I found out that Metroid Fusion was built on the same engine as this game. Call it a curiosity. But I wouldn't play for more than an hour because my interest in Wario around that time was still middling. For this video, I'm actually finishing it this time, so let's see if we end on a high note. Obviously, with the jump in hardware, Wario Land's production values follow suit. This game has some of the best sprite work in the series by far, which is saying something because my contentious opinions on the last couple of games aside, they looked great, exploding with expression and aesthetic. This game is just on another level though. The sprite work for Wario and enemies are smooth, deranged, and cartoony, and this soundtrack is among some of my favorite beats in the Wario Land games. I think what helps is that the instrumentation reminds me a lot of the first WarioWare game, and if there's one thing I absolutely adore about WarioWare on the GBA and this game, it's the music. It's so fucking funky, man, especially with those compressed audio samples. This is also the first game to give us Wario's sick as fuck Cadillac. Hot damn, I love this car. It's so Wario. I like the plate enough, the Bulldog, but this is the ride I identify Wario with. But anyway, the story of Wario Land 4 involves Wario finding out through the news that a legendary pyramid has been discovered, and the musclehead figures when there's an ancient pyramid, there's bound to be treasure inside. So he hops into his car and makes his way to the pyramid with the hope of stealing all the treasure inside and becoming filthy fucking rich. Wario Land 4 ditches the Metroidvania aspect of world progression in favor of something more akin to the first 3 games. Stage-to-stage progression is linear, and you're free to revisit any stage you already completed whenever you want. The end goal of every world is unlocking the doors that lead to the boss, but to do this, you need to find this little floating key dude named Keezer in every stage that'll unlock the passage to the next level, and you gotta find the 4 hidden jewel pieces in every stage to construct the gems needed to open the boss door. Basically, this means the treasures are 100% mandatory this go around. You can't open the door unless you find them all. The only truly optional collectibles in this game are all the coins and jewels you can grab to get a high score and play minigames with later on, and the CDs that unlock songs in the sound test. I found a decent chunk of those too, but sadly, I didn't get them all in my first run. But if you miss any important collectible on your first visit, the game does keep track of everything you've already collected, so you don't gotta worry about getting the key and the 4 jewel pieces in one go. You only need to grab the things you missed out on your revisits. And there sure were stages I had to revisit, because some stages in Wario Land 4 are damn big and require a careful eye to notice the more devious secrets. The frozen factory, the pinball level, the volcano area, the haunted hotel, these are probably the most demanding levels because of what was asked of me. That said, Wario Land 4 is one of the shorter games in the series. There are only 4 worlds to explore with 4 stages apiece. I want to say it's just under the length of the first Wario Land game, but a little longer than the Virtual Boy game, but certainly nowhere near as long as Wario Land 2 and especially 3. You can choose any world in whatever order you want for the sake of making subsequent playthroughs more unique, but if you're looking for something with more meat to to its bones, Wario Land 4 might disappoint. For me though, I wasn't really bothered by the length, but that's probably not surprising given the praise I gave Virtual Boy Wario Land for its brevity. Again, sometimes it's not the game length I place value in, but rather how much fun I had in that amount of time, and Wario Land 4 is definitely a keeper, but I do have some issues. The transformations are brought back and act pretty much the same as before, but the downtime for most of them have been drastically reduced and don't eat up nearly as much time. Sweet Jesus, thank fuck. However, most of these transformations still require Wario to get hit by the respective enemy. And while this wasn't an issue in Wario Land 2 and 3 where you were immortal, in Wario Land 4, you can die again. People are losing faith in him. Your health bar is plenty sizable, you could take a bunch of hits, but now I feel transformations are more of a gamble. What enemy is going to make Wario turn into something funny, and which one is just going to hurt him? There's no way to really tell on your first playthrough, and it's a little awkward. Near the end of every world, you have a selection of 3 minigames to play for the sake of earning coins for the shop that sells you items to help give you an advantage for that world's boss fight. I like this little dude, the shopkeeper. I think it's actually a different form of the black cat that follows Wario around since the opening of the game. This form looks like Game & Watch if they developed the soul. But I love how no matter how expensive some items are, a smile is always free. Aww. Anyway, the minigames are harmless, but pretty damn uneventful. The home run derby is fun for a bit, but the game can feel like a drag, and the pitcher can do some high-grade bullshit with some of his pitches. Look, the baseball just fucking vanished like a Dragon Ball character. Who is this guy, Christopher Robin? I hope people get that. The memory game with Wario's face is humorous, and you can clearly see the devs were planting the seeds for WarioWare with this kind of shit and whatever the fuck was going on with the karaoke thing in the game's sound test. But this game doesn't keep me engaged long enough to farm more coins for the shop. My favorite of the bunch is the Wario Hop. It's just a game where you jump over obstacles as they appear on the screen. How far can you get before the game goes too fast for you to reasonably react on time? Again, none of these games are terribly remarkable, but I like how Wario Hop tests my dexterity. Still, I tried to earn coins when I could, using the money I found in every stage, because starting a boss fight with an advantage was something I was grateful for given how I thought the boss fights were some of the weaker parts of the game. Visually, they're all great looking, equal parts surreal, cartoony, and straight up grotesque. But trying to hit some of these guys in their weak points with either my large ass or a shoulder tackle felt off at times, and sometimes I had to really question what Wario Land 4 considered a hitbox. I'm incredibly happy to see Wario has all of his default moves again. No need to upgrade anything. He can bust through blocks, ground pound, throw things, and even dash like in the Virtual Boy game. But here, Wario can go so much faster. It's like he took Samus's speed booster and shoved it up his ass. No, seriously, this is a fast-paced Wario game. Every level may involve a thorough treasure hunt for keys or the hidden jewels, and bonus games that involve harassing this old dude. It's fine, I'm sure he's secretly racist or some shit. But often the game will let Wario cut loose and dash to his heart's content, breaking through blocks, grabbing coins and big-ass diamonds, rolling down slopes and other narrow corridors, or the stage might have a fast-paced gimmick like the one where you have to outrun these stacks of dominoes before the entrance to a hidden area with goodies is closed off. And it doesn't stop there, because in every stage, when it's time to wrap things up, you press this self-destruct button that suddenly brings in a countdown, where it's then time to haul your fat ass back to the portal at the beginning of the stage. Sometimes hitting the self-destruct button also radically changes a level that makes the backtrack itself its own kind of adventure, like how the volcano area freezes over and the newly formed icy pathways offer a new challenge for Wario to overcome. It could be a little hectic, and I know for some this is an aspect of the game they don't really care for or just straight up dislike, because it adds a degree of pressure that Wario Land games up until this point didn't really do. But God, I love it because it's Wario Land 4 at its fastest, and I love fast-paced platformers. Maybe it's my bias for this blue asshole peeking through. It is incredibly exhilarating trying to keep the speed going, and really the countdown itself isn't much of a problem in normal mode. I found it pretty generous. The only time I didn't exactly like the countdown was during boss fights. Yeah, even the boss fights are timed. But it's not so much a countdown for Wario's life, but rather how much longer you have before the treasure in the background begins to fade away. The ending you get depends on the number of treasures you have in your possession by the end of the game. So you gotta beat every boss in a short enough time to keep the treasure in the background safe and sound. And this isn't always easy given the problem I have with hit detection as I mentioned earlier, or the boss just being annoying to fight like the final boss, the Golden Diva. She is the final boss, yeah, but did it really have to last this long, and was the Spring Wario stuff really necessary? I hated having to hit myself with this hammer to trigger the power up. It just felt clumsy. I wonder what Captain Syrup is up to these days. She did just kind of vanish after the second Wario Land game, huh? Maybe the devs figured there was nothing else they could do with her, or fuck, maybe she died at the end of the second game. Wario did kick the fucking shit out of her in the alternate ending. I did manage to keep every treasure for the best ending thanks to my audience offering me help on bits I was struggling with when I asked for it, and the occasional save state as well, because one boss fight outside of the final one was giving me more shit than I asked for. I hated Aerodent the mouse with the giant teddy bear who's awkward to hit, likes to waste my time just by hanging up in the sky and I can't reach him. Go back to Wario Land 3, you fuck. But after Wario defeats the Golden Diva, the pyramid begins to collapse and Wario barely escapes with treasure in tow, and the cute little black cat. They even share a hearty laugh together, and That was surprisingly heartwarming for Wario. But that cat turns out to be the spirit of a dead princess named Shakara that was cursed by the Golden Diva a long time ago. With the curse lifted thanks to her possessions being reclaimed, she regains her true form, which can change depending on how much treasure you collected throughout the game. She could be a baby, Wario taking estrogen, trans rights, a more traditional looking princess, and finally a princess again, but with shorter hair. After bestowing Wario a smooch on the cheek, Princess Shakara passes into the great beyond, leaving Wario alone with all that delicious treasure he managed to scoop up. He then rides off into the sunset, a victorious bastard. And just what does he do with all that fancy moolah? He celebrates by going to an all-you-can-eat steak buffet. Fuck yeah, that's a great ending. Yeah, Wario Land 4 is pretty good. I had a feeling that'd be the case. A lot of you figured it would be one of my favorites, and I did very much enjoy myself, despite the couple of warts I mentioned beforehand. I just appreciate the game going back to a more straightforward loop and cranking up the speed, while keeping some elements from the other games that still give Wario its distinguished flavor. Did I miss the hat power-ups? A little bit, yeah, but I think how Wario Land 4 streamlines the transformations from 2 and 3 more than pick up the slack. This game is always moving and never meanders, with a few exceptions because of certain level gimmicks. Is it my favorite of the bunch, though? That's really hard for me to say. I think I liked it as much as, believe it or not, Virtual Boy Wario Land. It is difficult to properly explain what is it about the Virtual Boy game that I ended up deeply enjoying, despite it being on this godforsaken eyesore. Outside of the boss fights and the visual clusterfuck that was the final stage, there wasn't a level in this game I hated. King Dragon Wario is legit one of the best power-ups to use in any Wario Land game, and while the game might be a little short, it's so smooth to play. Wario Land 4 isn't much longer and definitely has the edge in graphics and sound. Seriously, I love how much personality Wario's sprite work has in this game, and I adore the faster gameplay overall. But there were some levels I really didn't care for, like the Frozen Factory and Pinball Zone, and I didn't like a good chunk of the boss encounters. I want to be clear, I'm still comparing a 9 out of 10 to another 9 out of 10. The fact of the matter is, I enjoy both games, and I think you should play them. But really, there's quality to every game I covered today, even the games I actively disliked. It just depends on what you're looking for. Do you want something more straightforward with basic level-to-level progression with cool power-ups and hidden treasures put there for the sole purpose of watching number go up? Then you play Wario Land 1, Virtual Boy, and 4. But if you want something more complex with puzzles and harder to get collectibles and more expansive levels and controlling a Wario who straight up just can't fucking die, then you play Wario Land 2 and Wario Land 3. And again, Wario Land 3 is long. You're definitely getting your money's worth with that one. It's been quite a journey today, finally getting to play all these games that I've ignored for so long. And while I don't think they're all winners, again, I'm just happy I finally sat down and played them for myself. I want to take this time to thank all my lovely patrons and Twitch subs who watched me record these games in the community Discord, the Subshack. They made the recording sessions immensely goofy, and thanks to them, I found out there exist over 3,000 videos where Wario dies in horrible ways, like him eating spicy curry in the middle of the Hiroshima bombing.
What?
Now, there's still a couple of Wario games left to look at, but next time I'm actually going to sidetrack myself for a bit to take a look at a couple of indie titles that took a lot of inspiration from the Wario Land series. And first up is Pizza Tower. Now, I've gotten a ton of requests for that one, so here's hoping that's a good time. And then afterwards, I'm going to take a look at Anton Blast. And then afterwards, we'll head back to Wario with Wario World for the GameCube, and then finally Wario Land Shake It for the Nintendo Wii. So with all that said, thank you all for watching. Stay safe out there, have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care. Holy shit, of course the large man got one of my larger videos. Anyways, I do apologize for the wait on this one, but how about we just get straight to the Patreon shoutouts? So continuing down my alphabetical list here, shoutouts to Jack Cookson, Jack Peary, Jack's brother, Jackie Boy, Jackalus Prime, Jack is back, Jackie Pendragon, Jacob Jordan, Jacob Kearns, Jade Oreos, Jay Dean, Jaime Lopez Aguirres, James Acosta, James or something, Jared Jawbreaker Alumni, it's Jay Foley, sorry, it's Joy Boy Foley, Jay Sway, JC Prime 404, JD Grawl, JDude 93, Jean Charles, or is it Jean Charles, Jeffersonia, Jelpy, Jeremy Redinger, Jerome Waters, Jesus Mancio, or Mancio, Joe Abazia, Joe Schremer, Joe Taylor, Joel Tio Tuico, Joe Gio, John Ackerman, John Luviano, John Rutherford, Jonathan Youngs, Johnny Motley, Johnny vs. World, Joto Lad 64, Jojo Harder, Jonah Hankins, and finally for today, Joan Alfaro. So as always, you've been a lovely audience, and I'll see you guys next time with the Pizza Tower video. You can catch more videos here on the end screen if you happen to want to watch them. I appreciate your time and company, as always. Have a good night, everybody.